So good morning, everybody, or I guess wherever you are in the world as you're watching this. Welcome to 5 Days to Shame-Free Parenting. Change the way you speak to your 7 to 11-year-olds. I'm excited about today. This is a topic that I coach on a lot. I'm a parenting coach. My background is in attachment-based parenting, connection-based parenting. And I noticed that over the years, as I started to read more and more books, I have so many good books. In fact, my whole bookshelf beside me is full of all these amazing books that they were great, but I had a really hard time actually implementing the tools that they used. And it also felt like it was really draining emotionally. Like it took a lot of effort in order to do the compassion and to do the empathy and to do the kindness and to do the connection. And I was just like, oh. So not only did it feel sometimes impossible, it also felt like it took so much effort and it just felt really difficult. And I didn't want it to feel so difficult. And so over the years of studying, I eventually became a life coach. I have my degree in psychology and I went back to school, became a life coach, started training. I took a training through Brene Brown, and that's what I really started getting into shame. And I started just noticing how much shame popped up in our parenting and how much it popped up for us under the surface in ways that we didn't even realize it. And that it was really the thing that was blocking us from being able to do the really cool book stuff. And that once you figure that out, you don't actually have to read all the books. It comes a lot more naturally to you when you kind of figure out what's going on inside. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what parenting was like in the 80s and 90s and why that is interrupting our patterns right now, why it's difficult for us to parent in the way that we want to right now as well. So welcome, Lauren. Lauren, you just joined. If you want to type in the chat the ages of your kids and where you're tuning in from. And I'm going to share my screen if I can figure it out. There we go. Okay, so welcome to 5 Days to Shame-Free Parenting. That's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to notice how shame is interacting with us and our relationships, specifically our parenting relationships, and what we can do to change that. I'm going to teach you a 5-step method to unshame. Each day we're going to do SHAME, one tool every day to figure out how to do this unshaming process so that we can more naturally parent our kids in the way that we have in our mind. Everybody kind of has in their mind, like, this is what I want to do. This is the relationship I want to have. This is how I want to show up. But it's easier said than done. So we're going to talk about that. And I will also share some really cool stories about clients that I've worked with. The first one that's coming to mind right now is when we first started doing this work together. She was like, oh, I'd love to just not yell so much. And we didn't even really talk about yelling. We didn't even really coach on yelling. The work that I'm going to teach you today and this week is the work that we were doing with her. And she sent me a message a few weeks in. And actually, I think most of the time she'd even just watched the recorded calls. I don't even know how much she had come live. And she said, I haven't yelled in 18 days. And that seemed like a miracle to her. So I used to be a yeller, definitely a huge part of my parenting years ago. And it felt impossible. I remember going to this one workshop about not yelling, and they told us to do things like put an elastic band on your wrist and flick your wrist every time you yelled, or stick your head in a freezer. But they didn't work. It didn't help. It didn't help because it was kind of backwards. It was at the end of it. It was like, what's causing me to yell in the first place? What's causing me to parent in this way? What's happening under the surface? That was the stuff that really changed it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So each day we're going to go through one of those ideas, one of those modalities, how to unshame ourselves and our parenting. And we'll talk a lot about how our past parenting, how we were parented, affects our parenting right now. So to start off with, I love starting off with intentions. So what we're going to do is we're going to close our eyes and we're going to breathe for just a moment. And that breath is going to be breathing in through the nose and then pausing for just a moment and then exhaling twice as long out through the mouth and then pausing for just a moment. And I like to imagine it kind of like a circle, like a loop, like breathing in, pause, double exhale, pause. And we're going to do that for a few times and I'll just kind of guide you through. So go ahead and close your eyes, get in a comfy spot. We're going to do a few exercises like this throughout the week because it's really regulating for our nervous system. So go ahead, go at your own pace, in through the nose. Holding it for just a moment at the top. Exhaling twice as long and pausing. So keep going with that breath. And if you can, start to notice how your body feels as you breathe in and as you exhale. Maybe you notice your muscles start to relax. your face start to soften. Maybe your shoulders relax a little bit. Maybe you loosen some tension that was in your body. You can add some movement if you want, rolling your shoulders or your neck, clenching or unclenching your fists, wiggling your toes. And with those eyes closed, we're going to just do a shake out your body. And we're going to keep the eyes closed. And I want you to think about the end of this session today. So logging out of Zoom in an hour, just under an hour. And also the end of the week, coming every day this week, whatever days you're able to come, having the Friday session be over. I want you to think about, if anything was possible, how would you want to feel about yourself, about your parenting? If this slideshow that I'm going to give you right now was like a magic wand and I'm sprinkling my magic and anything was possible, you leave and you feel what? Think about why you came in, what the purpose was, what that ping was that you felt that made you want to sign up, want to come to on Zoom today, want to listen to the recording today. Think about that being fulfilled, how that would feel inside of you. Take that feeling and spread that feeling from your heart space, your center space, all the way up to your head, down your arms, your fingers, and your chest to your stomach, all the way down to your legs into the floor. Whatever way you want to feel, let's just spread it. And as you feel that feeling, notice it spread through to the floor. Imagine that you're standing on the ground outside and it's spreading all through the earth. You can feel the strength of the earth holding you. You can feel the strength of other people on the earth and their strength going through the earth and up to you. Just feel that sturdiness and strength and support. And then again, go back to your breath in through the nose. Double exhale out through the mouth. Shaking the body as you do the next couple breaths. And then coming back to center and opening your eyes whenever you're ready. Okay, going back to the chat. It's the center of your screen. You should see the little chat bubble. We're going to be using the chat today, and we'll also be using paper and pen, so make sure you have those. The first thing that I want to ask you in the chat, well, I guess not first because I already asked you something, but the next thing I want to ask you in the chat is, how do you feel? Now that you've done that practice and all emotions are okay, all emotions are valid, what's the feeling that you're feeling right now? Type that into the chat. I'm going to get my chat open so I can see it also. Okay. All right, so I missed Lauren, 8 and 11 Lethbridge, Kim, hi Kim, Edmonton, 7, 13, 15. Okay, Kim, feeling grounded, awesome. And also, if you were sitting there thinking, I don't feel grounded, I still feel anxious or worried or nervous or fearful or whatever, anticipatory, put that in there. All emotions are valid. Calm, more confident, stable, hopeful. I actually did this practice with a man the other day, distracted. Yeah, see, all emotions are okay. I did this practice with a man the other day, a dad. It was a couple, and I was showing him this kind of feeling, and all we did was breathe. That's all we did. And he had the most crazy experience. He said he just felt it like tingly all the way down his body. He felt so relaxed. And he said, I didn't even realize that my breath had been so shallow and I'd been holding it for so long. And not so long just in that session, like so long in his life. And that he was able to just release and just let it go. And he actually felt like tingles, full body tingles all the way over, just from doing just a few breaths. And also what we're going to get into today comes back to his experience as well, as he's dealing with these angry emotions, these big emotions. His wife brings him to me and is like, fix him. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to. And on the outside, it just seems like anger and defensiveness and frustration and having a hard time with his kid's big emotions. But what was really happening there was when his kid, one of the examples I'll give, little stories I'll give, his daughter was having a huge meltdown, sobbing on the floor, and he was mad. And he was like, I don't understand. Like, why am I mad? Why does that make me mad? It's because he has this little part of himself that came from his own childhood that's like, wait, we're not allowed to do that. We can't feel feelings. We can't sob. We can't express ourselves in these big emotions. Like, that's not okay. If it's not okay for me, if it wasn't okay for me, then why is it okay here? There's so much more under the surface happening for him than what he noticed above the surface. And above the surface, he was just like, I don't know why I just get mad at my kids. That is what shame-free parenting is versus shame-based parenting. And we're going to talk about why today and for the rest of the week. And no, you don't have to come to every session. You'll probably want to, but there'll be audio and video recordings, replays available till the end of Sunday. Okay, calm, relaxed. Awesome. So welcome to Shame-Free Parenting. We're going to talk a little bit about what shame is. Maybe you already know this. Maybe you're a fan of Brene Brown like I am, and you're like, yep, I already get all that. Okay, I got to figure out how to change my slide though. Hold on one second. Nope. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop my share for a second and present again. Okay. There we go. Okay. So I want you guys to think about what you know about shame, and what you think shame is, and let me know in the chat. So we're going to use that chat bubble below. What do you think shame is, if you had to guess? Well, I'm getting my screen share back here. Okay, I'm going to open up the chat again. If you don't know and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, that's okay. We'll get to it too. So what do you think shame is? I'm going to give you some definitions from Brene Brown. A deep feeling of I am bad. Yeah. Feeling bad about who you are and what you do. Yes. Distressing embarrassment about your entire self. That's a great definition. Yes. Distressing embarrassment about your entire self. Feeling not enough. Yeah. I often just say like shame is not enoughism. Something about not enoughism. Shame is feelings of I shouldn't, wanting to hide something. Yes, exactly. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what Brene Brown says that shame is. Shame is a powerful emotion caused by a sense of embarrassment about the self. It's the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. So Brene's little like quip that she kind of gives is I am wrong, or there's something wrong with me at my core, versus I did something wrong. So guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. And we might not necessarily notice that this is consciously happening above the surface. We're like, no, I'm doing a pretty good job. Or no, it's actually like my kids that just need to like chill out or whatever. But if you're feeling a strong emotional activation, if you're feeling a trigger inside, it's because there's actually something going on under the surface, because shame is actually present there. So we're going to talk about that throughout the week. Okay, see if my slides will work now. Yes, perfect. Okay, so I want you to think about parenting in the 80s and 90s. Maybe even before, that's cool too. So any kind of parenting that came before the 2000s, because parenting started shifting around then. And again, I want you to type in the chat, what was your parenting like? And in fact, if you're not totally sure, take your pen and your paper out and just write down for a minute, like, what are some tactics that maybe my parents used? How did they respond to me, especially with negative behavior? Think about that, like something that they wanted you to stop doing or something that they felt like wasn't okay. How did they respond to you? Again, you can kind of like write this out on your paper just to kind of get the juices flowing. Like, what did it look like? And obviously there was like some good parts too, and they probably connected with you sometimes also, and that's great. But right now, what I want you to dig into is like, how did they deal with your negative behavior? How did they deal with punishing you? How did they deal with discipline? What did that look like in your home? Okay, here's my chat. Oh, I missed Charlene's feeling helpless. Yeah. Parents motivating me through guilt. And I would say often that guilt kind of leads to shame, right? It's just like, you should be better than your sister, or why are you doing this way? Or you shouldn't have done that way, or you should know better. Like, not only like help making you feel bad about what you did, but we internalized that, especially if you were like below 9. because kids below that age don't have this way of differentiating between like I did something wrong and I am wrong. Like they just don't know. Like even if you were like you stole the cookie from the cookie jar and you shouldn't, and go to your room and you yelled at them and you were like it's because of the cookie. It's not because of you, it's because of what you did. They can't actually physiologically make that differentiation. They can't. They can't understand like, oh, it's because I went and did this thing and that's related to this outcome that then I have. Like it's way too complex of thought for what's happening with them. They immediately, it's just immediately going to go to something's wrong with me. Okay, my dad, stifling, stop it right now, that's enough. He was angry and impatient. Mom, guilt trips. Yeah. And sometimes, I don't know if any of you had like the mom that did like the silent treatment thing where it was like the guilt trip was through like, I'm so disappointed in you that like I can't even talk to you, or like maybe not even silent treatment, but just like the way that they express it. Like it's not even necessarily words, right? It was like on their face, in their tone, their body language, their posture. An angry and impatient dad. Anybody else relate to that? Okay, shutting down feelings and messages that feelings are wrong. So I want you to think about your childhood. This we're going to do on a piece of paper for a second, and then we're going to share in the chat. I want you to think about just the ways that your parents parented. And it's not just your parents, it was like probably how people interacted with you at church, at school, out in the community, out of the playground. Any time that you were interacting with adults was probably pretty similar to this. And I want you to think about this kind of parenting. So if your, dad was maybe really angry or frustrated, maybe your mom did the shut down and withdraw thing, maybe they used guilt, whatever it was that they used. I want you to think about little version of you. What do you think you believed about yourself because of that? Like, how do you think that was connected to shame back then? Can you see any correlation there? What did you think about yourself in those moments where you're like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't do that. I will stop doing that now. Now I will change and things will be better. Um, so write down for like 60 seconds. We're going to do just a little thought dump. Thought dump is like stream of consciousness, anything that comes to mind out on paper. So get out your paper and your pen or your notes app on your phone, however you're taking notes today. And I want you to stream of consciousness 60 seconds, everything that comes to mind. How is shame connected to how my parents parented me? What beliefs did I have about myself? I will type that in the chat also so you know what that is. Okay. And then share in the chat what beliefs maybe you had about yourself, how shame was connected to that. Going back to my example about the dad that I was coaching just at the end of last week, he hadn't made the correlation between what was happening for him now and his childhood. And in fact, when we asked about his childhood, he said it was great. My parents were good. They did a great job. I don't really remember them yelling that much. I don't know. Things were pretty good. Like he had no conscious, like when I asked him this question, like, how was your childhood? It was all just good. But yet, when we dug into what was happening for him under the surface, there was actually so much more of a connection there than he even realized. So much of it, this is like under the surface work. Okay, so I'm going to read some of these out. Kim said, I got the message that I was over emotional. My mom definitely avoided and gave the silent treatment. Dad also was very angry and impatient. I didn't feel seen or loved by him as a child. Yeah. And I want you to imagine, Kim, if like that was like your kid now, or you saw a kid on the playground right now, and like that was what they were dealing with. Like, I don't feel loved by my dad as a child. My mom often gives me silent treatment, like all of that, like how that would impact them, what beliefs they would have about themselves, what their emotional health would be like, what you can imagine their emotional health would be like as a teenager or as an adult, kind of like going forward. How all of that is interconnected. Okay, My parents would yell a lot, send us to our rooms and ground us along with the spanking, did not know how to control my temper or anxiety. Yeah, yeah, me too. So spanking for sure. We would get a lot of strict punishments, so it would be like over the top for whatever it was. Like if the behavior was here, the response would be like here. Definitely a lot of sending to the room. I don't know if you saw on the page, the registration page. I love the pictures that my husband found there when we were making the page, but I was just thinking about like phrases that I heard either in my home or at school or my parents' friends or whatever, or my friends' parents, and things like because I said so, or I actually laughed out loud when I remembered the like stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Because I was like, who has not heard that, right? Like all the time. There were so many of those little quips and phrases and ways of relating to us that hopefully now that you kind of know a little bit about what shame is, that you can see is so present. It was like shame is the driving factor. Shame is the motivating factor for how we were parented. And then we're like, okay, we're trying to do it in a shame-free way, but I don't know. There's so much happening under the surface that is connected. Okay. Had all of them. Yeah. Then my emotions were irrational. I had lots of big emotions. Sending to my room were kind of a getaway response. Yeah. And the emotions being irrational too, right? Like humans have big emotions, right? Like we just do. We are feeling people. And like, yes, some of us probably are more deeply feeling than others, but really, like, if we all allowed ourselves to have the emotions that we have, we are emotional creatures. And I don't blame my parents. I'm not like, oh, this was terrible that they didn't do it a different way. But mostly because I've read some books from the 80s and 90s and seen little phrases from them, and I'm like, wow, they were teaching them shame. It was like instead of reading like The Whole Brainchild from Dan Siegel, it was like, here, this is how you shame your kid. Let's do it this way. This will work. Everything was about how do I change their behavior, and mostly through shame. Okay. When I had big emotions, everyone laughed, and the mantra I always heard was, "You're making a mountain out of a molehill." Oh, oh, that one hurts. Even just reading that, I'm like, oh, I can like feel it. I kept trying to get them to hear and understand me and was then told, "You're beating a dead horse." Yeah, it was like, I just want to be seen. I just want to be heard. I just want to be connected. Also, if you're human, that's what you want. Those are the three things you want. You're looking for attachment. You come into the earth seeking attachment, seeking connection. That is your greatest, deepest need. I think even more so than food and water and all the things that we think are our like basic needs. I think it's even more intrinsic than that. And we're looking for it all over the place and not finding it. Okay, my emotions weren't safe to express because then I was too much and got rejected. Then I felt even worse. I'm not important enough to care about or listen to. I had to be good. Tried not to rock the boat. All of that with my dad. My parents divorced when I was 7. My mom, I realize now, I think I coped by being a good girl. My dad would say, "You're too sensitive." He even says that as an adult to me. Yeah. Like you're too, who felt, put a 1 in the chat if you got this message of you're too much. Your emotions are too much, you're too much, your dreams are too much, you're too loud, you talk too fast, you're too sensitive. I don't know if I've met a woman who hasn't somehow got that message from society. Absolutely. And I do want to mention that part of this, it's not just individual work. Like, yes, I'm going to teach you the individual work this week. That's what we're going to work on. But also it's this like macro level of like, this is how, what society was shoving down our throats and our parents' throats and at school and at church and in community. Like that was what was everywhere. And so part of it is this like it's not all on just us as an individual to change. Like I want it to be a wave of change. I want the way that we're interacted with to change all over the place. One, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. All of us. I love that my Zoom sometimes just like when I'm using my hand signals just puts up things like thumbs up for me. Okay, so that was shame-based parenting in the 80s and 90s. Anything else you want to add about like what your parenting, um, how your parents parented you, how that's connected to shame, beliefs that you have about yourself? Type that in and we will make sure to get to it. Now let's see if this is, it's working. Okay. And I will for sure get to any questions or comments. I should have mentioned that also. If you want to have your video unvideoed, I mean like turned on so I can see you, that's also awesome. But if you're not in a space where you can do that, that's okay. And all questions are awesome. Anytime you have a question or a comment, feel free to type that in. Okay, so this is from positivepsychology.com, and they were just summarizing some truths about shame from Brene Brown. So this is what we're going to talk about today. So these are 3 truths from shame. We all experience shame. It is universal. So when I talk to people, I've actually had a lot of conversations with people that maybe haven't done any therapy or coaching, or maybe don't read just self-help books for fun like I do. And they're like, oh, no, I don't, that doesn't resonate with me. Like, no, I think I'm doing a really good job. No, I'm really emotionally healthy. No, I like actually like do not think that they feel shame at all. Um, what that means for me typically is like, I mean, I was there 5 years ago too, is that they just don't know what shame is. They just don't know how it's affecting them. They're living so up here on the highest level that they haven't yet have had access to that shame is a motivating, a driving factor in their life. Because we all experience shame, it's universal. One thing I will mention as I was studying to write these slides though, is that if you don't feel empathy, you often don't feel shame. So there is like a small percentage of the population that we would call sociopath or psychopaths or whatever that apparently don't feel shame. I've never met anybody like that, but if you feel empathy as a human, you also feel shame. So anyways, maybe there's like 1% or maybe less than 1% that doesn't feel that. It's not easy to talk about shame. In fact, even just this message is triggering to people. I started talking about this on email and on social media and all the things. And I even had a friend reach out that was just like, I really found that email triggering. Like, oh, and I was like, yeah, how do you talk about shame in a way that's not triggering? Because triggering is a strong emotional activation. If you're having a strong emotional activation about something, it means that shame is under the surface. So it's almost like talking about shame triggers your shame. But also brings us to number 3, which I think is the most important thing, is that talking about shame brings a sense of control. If we consistently just push down our shame and we don't talk about it and we don't bring it up, nothing changes. Nothing changes with this. Um, okay, my favorite quote I think is coming next. So let's go to that first. Oh, no, it's not. Okay. All right. I'm going to tell you a little story about another dad. So many dad examples today, but this relates to us as moms also. Who came to me, and he has just one kiddo that he was dealing with, and he more came for his relationship with his partner and less with his relationship with his daughter. But again, a lot more of those like angry, kind of volatile reactions and like not really knowing what to do with them and not feeling like they're getting any better and trying all the things. So we're working on his shame because that's what I do with people. We're working on just noticing it. What does it feel like in your body? What's actually really under the surface for you? It's not just like anger, like there's something going on under the surface. And we start to dig into that and we start doing some subconscious work, which we're going to talk about at the end of our session today. We start doing some subconscious work. We start digging into feelings and the nervous system and all of this. And we don't even meet that often. Like we started meeting, we used to meet every week for a few weeks, and then it would kind of just be whenever his work would allow. And so I was fascinated when I had a conversation with him recently when we hadn't met in about 4 weeks. And he said how much better things are. That they still get into arguments, but the arguments are way less frequent. They're way less intense. They don't spiral. He's able to repair and reconnect with his kid in a much quicker way. So much so that his daughter actually came to him the other day and was like, and even noticed, like pinpointed like a conversation that he had with his wife when they got in an argument. And she even pointed out, like, you kind of dealt with that differently. And his daughter is 8. And he was just like, I had no idea how much she was seeing and kind of watching what was happening. So shame really can make a huge difference. I'm just gonna check the chat here. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. So shame. So S. So remember every day I said I was going to teach you something, SHAME. It's actually unshame. I didn't want to be like, shame, here's how you shame yourself. We already do that all the time. We don't need any help with that. So see the shame is the first one, because we don't even recognize it. We don't recognize that our childhood patterns are actually interrupting how we want to parent. So remember when I was talking about like there's all these lovely books. I keep pointing to this one because I just put this one on my counter, but I have lots. That we'd be like, yes, this is the way I want to parent. This is how I want to do it. And then we actually try to do it that way and it doesn't. Or it feels like it's really draining and taking a lot of energy out of us. It's because of shame. Shame's like the blocker. It's like, parenting is on this side, I'm on this side, and there's this wall in between. The wall is just like heavy and bricked and guarded, and I can't move through it. That is what is making parenting feel so difficult and feel so draining, is because it's actually shame that's in there from our own childhood, from our own habitual patterns that are popping up in ways that we don't recognize it. So first of all, we're going to get into our bodies again. We're going to do another little like somatic movement thing. Somatic just means in the body. So I want you to close your eyes. Again, we're just going to take a slow, deep breath in through the nose, exhaling twice as long out through the mouth. What we're going to do this time is we're going to think about a time where you felt a strong emotion, maybe strong anger. Maybe you can just go right to a time where you felt a lot of shame or guilt, even really strong anxiety. And as you can kind of bring up that feeling in your body, like bring up the memory, go back to the moment in time where you felt that strong feeling and see if you can kind of notice the shame under the surface. So maybe under the anger, you can feel maybe a frustration at yourself, a sadness at yourself, feeling like you're not capable. Maybe under the anxiety, you can notice that there was these fears and worries and self-doubt about you, your abilities, your capabilities. Whatever that big emotion is, see if you can kind of feel that underneath the surface, there's something else, something that now we would call shame, some of this amount of not enoughness. And I want you to describe to yourself in your body how it physically feels. Like where in the body do you actually feel it? And if you were describing it to someone, what kinds of words you would use. Let's just sit here for a moment and watch it. Notice that you can tell how it feels in the body, but you're also the one that's observing it, like these two parts of yourself. You're the observer, and you're also what's being observed. Maybe it's tingly, maybe it's hot, maybe it feels like a shape or a color, maybe it feels constricting, heavy, light. Just keep watching it. Okay, we're going to do another slow, deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Shake the whole body. Shake that emotion out. Imagine it just leaving your fingers, going out through your feet, up through your head. Okay, so open your eyes, back to the chat center of the screen. Type in words. How did shame feel for you physically? So, however you feel shame, how did it feel in your body? If you were able to tap into that feeling, sometimes it's hard to tap into the feeling on the fly, but that's okay. You can do this after too. You can take a moment to pause after the session and try to do it on your own. So, okay, tighten my chest. Awesome. Yes, that's often how I feel, tight in my chest, like it's like constricting, hit in my stomach. Mine also feels hot usually. Usually I start to feel it like right below here, like right below my chest, like maybe in my sternum area and like all the way up here to my throat. A sick feeling in my stomach that extends all the way up to my throat, feel like throwing up. Yes, that's exactly how mine feels. It's like hot, like lava, and it like builds and like moves up like this and it like wants to get out. Heavy, sad, tight. Yeah. Anyone else? Feel free to type that in. A rock in my chest that forms from lava. Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting how like similar it can sometimes feel in our body. So however your shame feels, totally valid, however you would describe it to yourself. Maybe some of these descriptions help you understand a little bit more. So S for today in our little unshame process that I'm going to be teaching you our method is see the shame. So even notice it, call it out, like I'm feeling shame. And the reason why this matters in our parenting is because of this. Shame is like garbage or like dirty laundry. So I'm feeling shame from something. Somebody sent me a text or something happened or somebody was really passive aggressive with me or whatever. And I feel the shame boiling up inside me and it wants to come out. And it does. It does in the form of me shutting down and withdrawing, me getting really defensive and aggressive, me being more short with my kids, me kind of ignoring them. Maybe I like leave the room. Whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to be throwing that shame at other people. I'm going to be like, here's some garbage. I'm going to throw it at you. I'm going to throw it at you. I'm going to throw it at you. This isn't happening consciously. We are not intentionally deciding, like, I know I'm feeling shame. Let's see how far I can spread shame. But shame spreads. Shame, all it wants to do is multiply. All it wants to do is spread. That's like one of its main purposes, one of its driving factors. And so we feel it, we spread it to our husband, and then we go home and spread it to our kids, and then we go spread it to some random person on the sidewalk or like the tiller at the grocery store that's being too slow. Like that is how it happens. And so even if you are not trying to shame your kids, I know that you're not. You wouldn't be here if you were like, I know, I really think that shame-based parenting is the way to go, right? You would never have signed up. So you already know that you don't want to use shame in your parenting, but you're probably also realizing that it's kind of popping in there sometimes anyways, even when you're like trying not to do it. When maybe you're trying really hard not to do it. It's because it's coming in from our own childhood. And the first step is always awareness. Awareness that it's even there in the first place. Okay, Ashley said heavy, like I'm getting closed in into a box and wanting to escape away and pretend nothing happened. Yeah, and withdrawal. Yeah, it's like ooh, 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 squished in real tight. So, first step, see the shame. Notice it and call it out to yourself. And I love to call it out by being like, oh, this is shame. Because sometimes I'm just like, no, I'm feeling angry. No, I'm feeling anxious, whatever it is. But I'm like, oh, under the surface, like, this is actually shame. And this is how it feels in my body. Pause, getting out of my head about whatever it is, because oftentimes I have spinning thoughts when I'm feeling shame. Getting out of those thoughts and into my body and just noticing, how does this feel in my body? Where am I feeling it? Even just this, even if this is all you do, this will start shifting your parenting. Guaranteed. This will already start to change things. In fact, one of the tools that I teach, I was just teaching this to a client the other day, is red zone, green zone, yellow zone. So it's like green zone is like when I'm feeling calm and regulated. Yellow zone is when I'm started feeling agitated. Red zone is when I've like really lost it. Just tapping into how am I feeling physically in my body throughout the day can already help me figure out what it is that I need. So your work for this week is going to be noticing the shame and calling it out. No matter, and not even worrying about like, well, where did the shame come from or why is it happening there? We will get to that. We'll get to that later, I promise. But for now, the biggest step that you can make, and probably the biggest step of this whole week, is going to be noticing when you're feeling shame, noticing that it's popping up and calling it out to yourself. Okay. Questions about that? And again, going back to my client that I was talking about, the dad client, he that I hadn't seen in a while, this is the step he was taking. It was like noticing. It was going from like, I'm just angry and I'm just going to react to, oh, wait, there's actually something more going on and I'm feeling shame right now. And sometimes he didn't notice it in the moment. Sometimes it was until after the moment. And then it led him to repair and reconnect. But sometimes he actually was able to figure it out, like mid freaking out, like, oh, I'm actually feeling a lot of shame right now. And then he would pause and he'd leave and go do his thing. And we will talk about all the things that you can do. But I want to make sure I get to all of the questions also. Okay. No questions yet, so we're gonna keep going. So this is my favorite quote. This is kind of the quote that I imagine is like the theme of my movement. I'm actually going to be talking about a new program today. We're going to be doing shame-free parenting. And this is what I imagine is like the theme song. Actually, there is a theme song too, but this is like the mantra. If you put shame in a petri dish, it needs three things to grow exponentially. Exponentially means like bigger and bigger and growing more. Secrecy, silence, and judgment. Not just other people's judgment, our own judgment. If you put the same amount of shame in a petri dish and douse it with empathy, it can't survive. So I want you to imagine like, because she uses little examples of like mold often. And she's like, you put mold in a petri dish. Did you guys ever do this as a science experiment? Type a one in the chat if you did. I totally did this in grade 7, maybe 8 and 9 too. But you like take different like things from like dirty things from places and you're trying to figure out like which was the dirtiest and where had it more mold. And then you take the mold and you'd actually put it in a petri dish and then you would decide where to put it. So you could put it out in the sun or you could put it in like a cabinet with like a closed door and you would just watch the mold grow. Did anybody else do this? Yes? Okay. So what happened, you can type that in the chat also, what happened to the mold that was in the dark cabinet versus the mold that you left out in the sun? Does anybody remember? Or maybe you already know what the answer is going to be to this. I remember this so clearly because we were like swiping things and like or wiping them down and trying to like figure out the mold and see it grow. It thrives in the dark. Yes, exponentially. Isn't that fascinating? This is actual mold. We're not talking about shame, by the way, but shame is exactly the same. Actual mold, if you put it in the dark, it thrives. It grows, it builds, it blooms, it starts changing color. It's like gets real nasty in a very short amount of time. But you put it in the sunlight, you put that same shame in a petri dish, that same mold in a petri dish, and it hardly grows at all. And in fact, over time, like sunlight can actually just disinfect it. It can help kill it. So that's our purpose. Our purpose, what we're working on, the movement that I feel called to lead and to build and to grow and to change is this, is the petri dish, is can we bring it to light and stop just pretending that shame that we got from our own childhood is not impacting our parenting, and just continuously reading books and then feeling bad that we're not able to do what the books are reading, keep listening to podcasts and being like, I don't actually know how to implement any of this. Like none of this is working. And then adding more and more shame and feeling really terrible about it and not talking to anybody about it. Like that's just going to build more shame. Understanding that shame is part of it. Shame is part of the human experience. Shame is popping up, especially if we were parented in the 80s and 90s where shame was literally like grilled into us in so many ways. That's what we do. Okay. So I'm going to share a little example of this. I was parenting my child. I don't remember how old he was at this time, maybe 12 or something. And he had done something wrong. I think he'd hit his brother, or maybe he'd like knocked over his blocks or something. Anyways, um, I'm getting mad at him, but I'm like, oh no, I'm going to do it in the way that it says in the book. So I'm going to be kind and whatever. So I knew all the things. I'd read so many books by then and I'd been to lots of courses. So I sat beside him and I looked at him in the eyes and I put my arm around him and I was doing like reflective listening where I was like really listening and I was like looking at him in the eyes and I was like telling him what I thought he was feeling and whatever. Anyways, none of that worked. He like got up, freaked out, walked away, super mad. And I'm like, what? At the time, I'm like, why is this not working? Like, I'm doing the things, like, why do the things in the book not work? Anyways, doing some self-reflection after that, because at the time I was starting my first life coaching certification program. So I'm doing some self-reflection and I'm like, if I was actually verbalizing what was in my mind, this is what it would have sounded like. It wouldn't have been all that nice, pretty story that I just told you. It would have been, this is ridiculous. You're too old for this. You know better. You shouldn't be hitting your brother. This isn't, I don't even want to deal with this. I don't even want to deal with you. Like there was so much happening in my thoughts. And that's what he was feeling because our energy speaks louder than our words. And this is something I'm going to reiterate every single day this week. Our energy speaks louder than our words. Shame can come through our energy. Has anybody ever felt shame before? Again, one in the chat from your mom just giving you a look when you were little, or your mom not saying anything, your mom just having different body language, different posture, different shame, or even now as an adult feeling shamed by your mom, right? One, I love all the exclamation marks on your ones, ladies. Yes, yes, right? You do not have to say anything for shame to be that garbage thing that you're just throwing out at other people. Absolutely. It does not have to be in words. And our kids pick up on our energy more than they do anything else. Like we can say and do all the right things and have all the mantras and whatever that we're trying to use for them to use connection and empathy and all of those things. And they won't work at all if our energy is not there, right? If we're not aligned. Our brain works in this way: think, feel, do. We have a thought, the thought creates a feeling in our body, the feeling fuels our actions. And so I was just going to like the actions that I felt like good parents would have, that I felt like connection-based parenting people would have. But my feeling was actually frustration, and my thought was actually, you should know better. So how do you think that went, right? He's just like, okay, I'm doing this over here, but my thought and my feeling are way not aligned with my action. And that's what he was feeling. He was feeling the energy from that. He freaked out. It wasn't helpful at all. In fact, it actually was really helpful because afterwards I was thinking, oh, he can feel my thoughts. He can feel my energy. It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm saying, which is why we actually don't need that many parenting books. I mean, some of them have been really helpful for me, but for the most part, this comes naturally when we do this work. Okay, questions about that? No? Okay, so our work for this week is going to be that S part. It's going to be seeing the shame. And if you were like, yes, I see the shame, I notice it, I'm here, I'm already here, then you probably know this. Parenting is an inside job. Parenting is so much less about what do I do? What do I say? How do I respond here? Parenting is so much more what is happening inside of me. What is this bringing up from my own childhood or from my own not meeting my needs? Like, what is coming up for me? Because when we can do that work, and that's the work we're going to be talking about every day this week, when we do that work, that is where the changes happen. They happen on the inside. And as I change my thought and my feeling, then my actions change naturally, which is why I said in some of my emails and some of my content on Instagram recently that it feels so draining energetically to try to parent in a connection-based way. It's because my thought and my feeling are over here and my actions way over here. So it's pulling so much from me to try to be patient or compassionate or empathetic because I'm not really feeling that. I'm actually feeling really frustrated and trying to it's just so inauthentic, right? I'm trying to show up in this one way that I know I want to show up as, but it feels really draining because it's not aligned. When I'm over here and my thoughts and my feelings are aligned, when I'm not feeling the shame, which by the way, we're going to learn what's called shame resiliency. So I'm still going to feel the shame, but I'm going to be able to move through it and notice what's happening within my body. And over time, you'll notice that you're way less frequently triggered and way less intensely triggered. So just like the dad that I was recently talking to last week, who was like, we hardly ever have arguments anymore. And when we do, they're not as intense and I'm able to move on from them. Like all of that happened through us just working at the thought and feeling level. Not once did I say, I know what you should say to your wife when you start fighting. Oh, not once did I say, this is how you should respond to your kid. Never. This is not a teaching thing. This is not a I'm telling you how to respond thing. This is the let's work on the thoughts and feelings part and let's notice that the actions change because parenting is an inside job. So I decided that I want to make the Petri dish because I don't want to be that moldy, growthy shame that's just like, let's hide in the cupboard and let's just like pretend that shame's not under the surface and hope that over the generations things get better. Things aren't getting better because we're not actually focusing on this. In fact, I saw a really funny comedian on Instagram yesterday, or Reels, and he was just like, you know what's the problem with millennials? We know what's wrong with us. We know. We're like, I have anxiety. Like this is like we self-diagnose, we know exactly what the problem is. And he's like, and then he's like, it's not getting any better. He's like, okay, you have anxiety. Like, so what are you doing about that? Nothing. Cool. Like we're so good at self-diagnosing and being aware and knowing what's happening, but also like we need to do something about it. We need to notice that shame is the driving factor, is happening under the surface, and not just in your parenting relationship. In fact, you'll notice that as you do this work, all of your relationships will change. The dad that I was talking about just got a promotion to like detective. He's in the police force. His relationship with his daughter is doing so much better. His relationship with his ex-wife, like all of the relationships in his life have increased because of this work. So the Shame-Free Parenting Movement is my new group program where it is a petri dish. It is going to be the petri dish that we're like, we're going to all go and get the petri dish together and we're going to talk about the things that trigger us. And we're going to feel our triggers and we're going to move through our triggers and we're not just going to pretend like it's not there and hide it in the cabinet anymore. So I'm going to share a couple of examples with you, a couple stories with you. I had another client. You might feel like I only meet with dads. I really don't, but this was a really great dad client and he let me use his name. His name is Eric and he's awesome. And when he came again, he was like, I'm kind of frustrated at my kids a lot. I know that I want to change. I don't really think I'm doing this dad thing very well, but also it's because of my kids. Like my kids are the problems. In fact, I think he was like, my kids are just little jerks. He was like, I don't know how to handle them. And he really just thought his kids needed to change. So this is what he said at the end of doing this work. I was initially skeptical. I didn't understand how this was going to help, but now that I see that I was looking in the wrong direction, I could have never got there on my own. One of the things that I love about this example that he shared is I was reading a book called Secure Relating by two PhD psychologist ladies, and they were talking about all the difficulties that we go through, what some people call trauma. And oftentimes we describe trauma as an event held in aloneness. So it's not this huge thing that happens, but it's actually our feelings of being unseen and unheard and disconnected through whatever difficulty we were going through. And then in that book, they say, because it so happens in this aloneness, this feeling of like, it's only me, we need other people in order for it to work. They actually said that healing can only work in connection with someone else. They were like, yes, podcasts can help. Yes, books can help, but they don't help that much. The thing that helps them most is doing this work with other people. And I think doing this work with even more than one person is super, super effective. Okay, Gabby, I don't think she's on the call this day, but she's also awesome. And I did not pay her to write this. She just wrote it, which was awesome. She said, I have to say, since starting the school, I used to have a program called Parent School. The coaching techniques and all the tools we've been using have helped me more than what I've experienced in 10 years of seeing a psychologist, as I feel like I'm truly healing myself. So she was already doing this work. She already knew what she wanted. She was going after it. She was in therapy for 10 years. And this was a short time after she started working with me. This wasn't a real long time. And I cannot remember who wrote this last one, so I didn't write their name down. I have to say the program has shown me a more beautiful part of me. It helps me to connect with myself more than anything. The tools you've given me have been soul saving. Your ability to guide people shows that you're connected with yourself, and to show me how powerful it is to model things for our kids. So one of the things we talk about in parenting, which you probably already know, is that we teach through modeling. They model us, right? Which is why, like, I recently, people have said like how much my teenagers remind them of my husband. They're like, whoa, they're just like little, my husband's name is JD. They're like little mini JDs. Like, holy cow, they're just so much like them. Even if you're not trying to do that, they're gonna like walk like you. They're gonna like have mannerisms like you. Their voice is gonna sound like you. There's things that they're gonna do just because they're around you so much. And so we get to decide, what are we going to put into them? What do we want them to model from us? And oftentimes we're kind of doing this subconsciously without even realizing it. And so if we're not noticing how our shame is playing a role, then it can really pop in there. So this is my Petri dish. This is my Petri dish. It's going to be a group coaching program. It's going to start next Monday. It's the most effective shame work to be done in community, because you're going to have to say things like, this is how shame showed up for me today. And it's going to feel so uncomfortable. And you're also going to sometimes not want to say it, but you will watch somebody else on a group coaching call describe something, and you'll be like, oh, that's exactly what happened to me. I can't even believe how much I relate to this. Ask anyone who's in my programs right now or has been to any of my workshops or any of my retreats. I know that some of you were in here. Type a 1 in the chat if you're like, yes, yes, yes. Where you came to a call and you were like, I can't even describe what's happening within my body right now or what's happening for me. And then you see somebody else explain it and you're like, oh yeah, that's it. You see somebody else get coached on it and you get it too. Okay, Kim said, absolutely. Ashley 1, yes. This happens all the time. So I think that the Petri dish is even more effective, that there's more people in it. So we're gonna have 8 weekly calls. We're gonna try to do them around Mondays at 11 a.m., but we're actually going to start next Monday evening at 7:30 p.m. And then we're going to take a vote and see what time zones people are in, because I know there's people from all over the place. We're also going to do 3 subconscious reprogramming calls, because this isn't so much conscious work. We'll do subconscious work throughout every single call. We're going to be doing subconscious work, but 3 of them will be intentionally just that, because the work is so much under the surface. It's not stuff that we can even necessarily realize. We're like, I got mad because of this. I'm feeling anxious over here. This happened over here. And we don't even notice that it's relating to our shame. And so subconscious reprogramming calls are going to be the under the surface calls. They're going to be the what's happening for me, and let's move through that. Let's process that. Uncovering why you're triggered and changing the neural patterns. And what I've noticed in my life as I've been doing this work is that I still feel shame. I'm still human, and I'm like, ugh, the shame's still there. But this is what happens with my shame now. I notice the thoughts. I know what the thoughts sound like. They come in, but I don't feel as attached to them. I don't believe them anymore. I notice them come in, and I notice them just float out. I also have noticed, and this is a huge one, this is probably the biggest thing, is I feel less intensely triggered. The feeling doesn't feel so strong, and so it doesn't take over my behavior in the moment. I'm still able to pause and reflect and kind of step away and move through things within myself so that I can respond in the way that I want to. So I feel less frequently triggered, probably by 90%, and less intensely triggered, again, by probably 90% or more than what I did a few years ago. And it's so much more than just like talking about our thoughts and talking about what's happening. Like, it's actually, there's some actual body in under the surface work to do. We'll probably do these around Thursdays, 9 a.m. again, Mountain Time, but depending on who signs up. Sometimes I have people from like Australia or Europe or whatever, so we will make these so that everybody can come on them. And also that you don't even have to be there live to watch them. I actually had this lady that came to one of my group coaching programs and never came to any calls ever. Nobody even knew that she existed in the program. And she would listen to them like a podcast after, because we have a podcast audio recording of them. And I asked her at the end of it, I was kind of like, how did it go for you? Because I was actually curious too, because she never came to anything live. And she said that she felt so much better. She was like, things are going so well. And she even told me that there was this experience where her son really wanted the iPad at night, and she was like, no, it's time for bed. And she was like getting angry and frustrated, and she was like about to like respond in her frustrated way. And then she like took a break. She went into her room, she processed through stuff, and she was like, oh, okay, wait, I know what's coming up here. Came back, responded totally differently. And he was like, I just want 5 more minutes. And she's like, okay, cool. He had his 5 minutes. He turned it off himself and went to bed without any friction at all. It was incredible. And things like this happen even if you can't come live. So it works either way. We're also going to have a community where you can ask questions throughout the week and keep up with the homework. There'll be some journaling prompts or maybe some extra work throughout the week. And we'll do this either via email or Facebook group or whatever. We'll do a little vote and see what the easiest community way is for people. We're also going to have dad calls because I think that so much of this work is focused on the mom, which is great. And I love it. And I'm glad that there's so many people out there helping support moms. But I have been so blown away by the dads that I've worked with that have come, that have really opened up, that have really understood this connection between what's happening from them and what is happening with their childhood and how it plays a role, and that shame is under the surface. And I had at least two dads just weeping on calls last week, which I would have thought like they're just, these strong, we don't talk about our feelings, and had so much there. And I think that having a call just for the dads is so effective for them to really be able to put their guards down and be like, this is what's happening for me. So it's going to be a really unique space there as well. Also, if you're like, I don't like opening up in front of people, that's fine. You can watch the recordings. You can come and just watch the calls. You do not have to feel like you have to open up, but also you can add on 2 one-on-one sessions, which are typically $250 each. You'll get 2 of those for $400. So you can come and do a one-on-one session with me where you can open up more easily. You might be nervous about that too, but don't worry. It's not scary. Once you get flowing, you'll know. Some of my clients are on this call right now. It's not as scary as it sounds. And if you think you need more, if you're like, no, 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 I really want to deep dive into this. I want something like really intensive. Like I want to like be working on this every single day. We have that available as well. So you can also up level for a Voxer group, which is like a walkie-talkie app, which is awesome. I have a Voxer group going on right now, and it's one of my favorite things. And it's like having a coach in your pocket Monday through Friday. And it's going to take you all the way through the holidays, through Thanksgiving, both American and Canadian Thanksgiving, and Christmas and New Year's. It'll be available for 3 months, so you can have that extra help and support if you want. And I believe that this is so effective. I believe that this Petri dish is going to work so well. I know because I've done this work before with people that I'm actually going to do a 7-day money back guarantee. If you're in there for the week and you're doing the homework and you're coming to the calls or watching the call recordings and you're like, this is not for me. Like, and not even not for me because I don't think it's going to work, but maybe not for me because you're like, I'm just not ready to dig into my shame right now. Like maybe next year. That's okay too. You can wait, you can come back. There are literally no hard feelings. I only want you to be in this program, in this Petri dish with us, if you are feeling called to it. If you are feeling like, yep, this is for me. This is for me right now. And listen to that if it is. So yes, you will see the change. You'll probably see the change after one call. In fact, you'll probably already see the change after today's call. Because what's interesting is that when you're doing subconscious work, so some of the subconscious work we did today was tapping into our body, noticing where our shame is, that work keeps working. Not even on a conscious level, it's going to keep moving out. So you'll notice changes already. So join the Shame-Free Parenting Movement. We start next Monday. Here's a QR code. You can also go to Coach Crystal, CoachCrystal.ca/group to join the Shame-Free Parenting Movement. So there's not a ton of information on that page yet. There will be later. And I want to get to coaching and questions. So I know that it's already 10. So if you have to hop off, that is totally fine. But I want to answer any questions that you have, either about the Shame-Free Parenting Movement or just questions when you're like, how is this connected to shame? Or I don't understand this. Let's dig into that. We'll give ourselves 5 minutes. We'll go 5 extra minutes. We've already actually gone 5 extra. We're going to go another 5 extra minutes. So type in a 1 if you're like, no, I feel complete. I'm good. I know what my homework is. I know what S is that we're going to work on today. I'm going to be back for more tomorrow. Bye, Myra. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. So type a 1 if you feel complete. If you have something you want to say, a question you want to ask, I'm here for it also. You don't have to, but if there's something on your mind, we will get to that too. 1, thank you. Thanks, Lauren. Anybody that's not a 1 where you're like, I really have this burning question that I want to ask about shame. I see shame everywhere. An interesting thing I've noticed is that every single person that I've ever worked with, that it doesn't just affect their parenting when we do this work. They will get promotions at work, or they'll just feel better about their job, or they won't and they'll decide to quit and get a job that's a little bit healthier, or they'll be better at telling their partner that they have needs and being able to actually express them. They'll stop arguing with their partner as much. They'll feel like they're more on the same page. Those things have happened with everyone that I have worked with. They have noticed it in more than just one area. It's never just like, okay, that's just one little thing. Okay, are we looking for shame we feel ourselves or shame we cast on others, or both? Both, it's going to be the same. If you're casting it on somebody else, it means that you have already felt it. So if you notice that you're in the act of like pushing the shame to somebody else, that means that you have felt it. So I would tap into, how does this feel in my body? So it's all about what's happening for me, right? Parenting is an inside job. You might not notice it until it gets external, until you're yelling or until your kid's crying because you just yelled at them. Or I just use yelling examples because yelling was my go-to. But if you're more of like the shut down and withdraw person, same thing. That's still shame showing up, right? So just noticing, how does this feel inside my body? Okay, thanks, Charlene. Yeah, right? Isn't this cool? I feel like this, like someone, maybe I will in the future, needs to make a parenting book about like shame is your parenting problem. Like if you saw my reels, I did a reels that was that. And I know when it kind of felt like people were called out about, but shame, but really it's your parenting problem in a way that you don't even know, in a subconscious way that's affecting you that you don't even see is affecting you. And it makes parenting so much more simple, so much more natural, so much more connection based when you can move through it. And I should also mention that our goal isn't to never feel shame, isn't to never lose it on our kids, isn't to always be perfect. Because the way that we teach shame resiliency to our children is by modeling shame resiliency, feeling it, processing through it, coming back, moving from it, learning from it, repairing, reconnecting, apologizing to our kids. That is actually how it teaches them. And it's also how you create a more secure relationship. So if you've ever heard, there's this is it called kintsugi? There's a Japanese art form where you like take something and smash it, like take like a mug and then smash it and then you put it together with like glue, and it's like really beautiful and pieced together, and it like has like pieces of gold and stuff. And they actually believe that the imperfection is what makes it be more beautiful, and it makes it more sturdy and it makes it more strong. I was reading about it in this Japanese book called Ikigai, and I loved it. I was like, yes, it is the imperfections that make it more strong, that make it more beautiful, and that make it more unique. So we are not going for this miracle form of parenting where we turn into robots and we never yell and we never freak out and we never use shame and we never have our shame move through us. No, that's not what we're going for, because that actually doesn't create as secure of an attachment. In fact, the research shows, I work for the attachment nerd. Her name's Eli Harwood, if any of you follow her on Instagram, but I work for her, and she was sharing that the attachment shows that a secure attachment is actually created through moments of not being secure, through moments of fractures in that attachment, through moments of times where it doesn't go well, and then we're able to repair and reconnect. That actually gives us more of a sense of felt safety than if you just have someone who's just perfect all the time. And that made me feel, I was like, okay, cool. I can do that. I can do imperfect parenting. I can do good enough parenting. Ashley, there's so much suffering from shame. There really is. And if you think about it, and I didn't really even talk about how shame affects us in all these other ways, but if you remember, we were talking about childhood and you were like, my emotions were shoved down and they were told that I was too much and whatever. Well, if those pop up for you and you're like, oh, I don't know how to deal with these, overeating, over drinking, addiction, pornography, drugs, all the antidepressant stuff we have, all the things can be connected down to this root of like, something is inherently wrong with me. That is the message that shame gives us. And the more shame that we feel because of that, and a lot of addiction recovery programs and a lot of food programs and a lot of everything is like so shaming still, that it's not really helpful for us either, because we're feeling so much shame still. So that is why you'll notice that as we do this shame work, it will affect way more arenas in your life than just parenting. Okay, 1 more minute. Any more questions? Any more questions about the shame-free parenting movement? Who's like, I already know I want to join you. Do it. Join us. We're going to start next week if you want to keep doing this work. We'll do this every single day. and then we'll start next week. But this work is so beautiful. And I think that it sounds a little scary sometimes. It sounds a little hard sometimes, but also it's really beautiful work. I love doing this. I love being part of this change. And I have so many examples to share because shame still pops up for me. And I'm like, oh, wait, it's not popping up in parenting anymore. But now it's popping up over here in like friendships or in business or whatever. There's always so much to work on. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. We will see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Mountain Time. We will learn about the H in the shame, in the unshame method. And again, the audio and video recording of this will be on replay, so you can come and watch it or listen to it, whatever is most effective for you. And I would love to hear from you. If you want to email me and say, this is what I really got from this, or this is a question that I have, or whatever you want. Okay. Thanks, Kim. Okay, you were amazing. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.